When it comes to Thomas merch, particularly in the diecast line, I think Take and Play is obviously my favorite line. Like 2010 to 2012 Take and Play is honestly my favorite diecast Thomas line and possibly my favorite Thomas toy line ever made. I love this line very much, but there's no secret when I tell you that my childhood diecast line was obviously Ertl. Like seriously, if we're talking like I don't know, like the age demographic of like 2 to 5 years old or 4 or 5 years old, my two Thomas childhood toy lines at that age were Termy and Ertl. Like I loved them when I got new trains of these two lines. I didn't get any Wooden Railway. Obviously, I was Take Along was came out a few years later, so I witnessed Ertl get discontinued. I witnessed its change with the weird couplings where the engines could connect, but like I was still around when Ertl was as it was. But I'm not talking about Tim because I'm talking about Ertl because the other day I managed to pick up this little beauty. What I got was a very first version. Well, let me rephrase that. The first variant of diecast Thomas and the first version of Thomas that Ertl ever made. So let me give you a little story. The other day, me and my two best friends, one of them being Big Phil Animations, and another friend of ours, went out to Preston. And there's like a market on. I'm just looking around. I'm just going to quickly pull the Thomas away because there are some train stuff there, but there's like a stand with model railway trains there. I so happen to look at the toy aisles, and in the corner of my eye, I find a sticker face James. And I did some further, and boom, this was there. And let me just pull this back up because I've got another piece of track here. I found these two, and I was like, I won't lie, I'm going to give a little secret away. I nearly decided not to get the Thomas because the face was a bit messed up, as you can tell. But I thought about it, I was like, I'm not grabbing it to play. I'm not going to like use it for videos. I'm using it to have it for collector's purpose. Then again, I sound like a hypocrite because I'm doing a video on it and it's just a little fun thing I want to do. But guess how much I got these two guys for? They were 50p each. I only paid £1 for two rare Ertl sticker faces trains. Like, wow, that's a pretty sweet deal. I was glad I actually went ahead and got these because this Thomas, I am happy to have the James, and his face is in better nick. Like, he really is. But to have the Thomas, it's just so surreal. It really is. Side note, I should mention, I also have Gordon as well, but I actually got him in Preston as well. Like, it was like before Halloween, and they had like two Gordon's sticker faces, and this was the better conditions. Like, oh, I'm coming for you. So I seem to get lucky getting sticker faces in Preston. Like, it would be so cool if I got like Percy or Toby. Oh, Toby would be so cool to have. So these are the sticker faces I own, and I would actually like to get the other characters now. And I think it'll have to be when I go to Preston on Tuesday because you never know what I could find with sticker face Ertls. But obviously today, I actually want to talk about more the Thomas than the James because, like I said, this was the first version of a diecast Thomas ever made. This was like how Thomas first looked in the diecast line. Obviously, this was how Ertl first made him originally. And I really want to give my thoughts. And I want to give him a comparison to this Thomas because, let's be real, everyone I think I knew grew up with this Thomas as a child. I most certainly did. Then again, I've had quite a few Thomases in Ertl in this version for many years, even with the weird couplings where they could connect together. I'm going to be honest, I was never a big fan of those couplings, to be honest. I like the fact that you could like connect Thomas and Gordon together. I just hit a table there. Like, you can connect Thomas and Gordon together and do, like, the ending scene of Down the Mine and James and Toby at the end of Time for Trouble. But there's something about just this standard coupling system that was a lot nicer. And it all started with this version of Thomas. And I just want to give my thoughts on it and compare it to the Thomas that came after it. Obviously, like this Thomas changed slightly, but we'll get into that in a bit. So, as we all know, this version of Thomas came out in 1984, and I think you can say that with my hands shaking just about. And for the first, and this how he looked, as I said, for the first time. Now, obviously, mine scuffed up, but for the first attempt at a diecast replicant, get that word in your mouth, representation of Thomas, I'd say they nailed him quite well. But I will say there's some flaws. Like, you can obviously tell there's the Thomas charm. The sticker face obviously has like how Thomas looked like in that iconic Railway series illustration. I'm sorry if the camera's shaking it. But, and all this, like his obvious details, like they even did the running board white. And this is like the first time ever, like, take along, take and play, all engines go, push along, kept a consistent red following, because the following year they re-released Thomas, but he had the red running board. And I will actually give you a little fact. That was actually a childhood Thomas of mine, but it's one I very used little of, because I used this Thomas more because I think it may have been better. I honestly don't know. I think this was just too iconic of an Ertl Thomas to not be used. But sadly, that Thomas with just the plain red running board is no longer in my possession. But I would like to get one with just the red running board. But to have the white running board is so surreal. And honestly, I feel rather complete in a way, because I've had many characters Ertl come and go. Like, I would like to get a new Duncan and Derek. I never owned Coldy in Ertl. Actually, when I say Duncan, I did get Derek. I like to get more of the metallics. I've got Thomas. I've got Percy. I'd like to get the gold Thomas. More trucks. I would like to get some track again. So there's quite a lot of Ertl I would like to get, but just have like the first version of Thomas ever made. You feel like you're a true collector of Thomas and Friends items. Like, you really do. Like, I adored the diecast lines. As I said, 2010 to 2012 Take and Play is honestly my favourite of the diecast lines. But just having this just makes me feel like a true collector in some ways. Like, not a Hornby Thomas or like a Hornby Murdoch or Bear or a Playwell Oliver. Just this version of Thomas is amazing. Like, I'm not going to get into the technical difficulties of Ertl, but I will give my fair criticisms. Like, as you can tell, my face is very scuffed up, and the only thing I'm not a big fan of the sticker faces, like, they peel off very easy. Like, when I saw Gordon when I picked up mine, there was another one without the face, and one time in a charity shop we saw a sticker face Edward without his face. So obviously these Ertl toys were very delicate, hence why I think they gave him the plastic faces we all know and possibly remembered more as grown up as children. But, and I will give it this, you can see there was obviously some red painted on the sides, but dare I say, you can see it better there. I can say this is painted quite poorly, I'm going to say. Obviously, it's had the childhood love, but it would just be like a plain right running board. Like, I remember seeing like one of these on eBay last year for amazing, brand new, fresh condition. And it looked so crystal, no childhood love, no destroyed face. It looked clean. It looked brand spanking new. But you can obviously tell at that time it wasn't the best painted. I think the buffers were painted, but like, even when they gave Mulder face, like Stepney has sticker buffers, they could easily come off. And I think the narrow gauge engines had sticker buffers. Mind you, where's James is here? No, I think James here must have had buffers, but sticker buffers. So obviously, but like stickers here, like they obviously work, and they managed to keep intact. But it's just the buffers and the face ones that weren't obviously the best. And you know what? Those are my only criticisms with this version of Thomas. Like, for the first ever diecast version of the main character, they pretty much nailed him quite good. I will say, though, I feel like when I look at this, I feel like I'm getting more vibes to Railway series Thomas, which fair enough because this could have been made before series 1 of the TV series came out. So it's very debatable whether it was, and maybe when they brought this version of Thomas out, like, I don't know, they tried to make it more like TV series Thomas, but you can tell by the face, it's obviously based off the Rara series. Like, if I bring up the classic Tommy Thomas, like the Thomas I used before using the CGI one, that gives me like classic series Thomas vibes face. And if you look at like Hornby, they nailed like Thomas's classic series face pretty well. And then of course when it was becoming CGI and all engines go, like, they nailed the faces of Thomas very well, I would say, for the most part. Like, both of them have done the good jobs, and you know what, it is quite neat seeing Ertl do a Rara series face for Thomas. I mean, have you seen Playrell's new Rara series Thomas? I so want it. But I am getting off topic because I think this is, like I'm saying, as I've said, as a first version of Thomas, they've done a pretty great job, I would say. I'm just trying to get the words in. I just think they've nailed this version of Thomas quite well. Like, they try to make him look how Thomas looks, and you know what? To try and make him look like Thomas, but how he does as a train in real life, they've done quite good. I will give them credit there. They've done great. Okay, now we should go into the main reason why I'm doing this video. I actually want to compare the first version of Ertl Thomas to the newer Thomas, the Thomas that came later, that were all so familiar when we think of diecast Thomas from our childhood. Like I said, I don't picture this Thomas, I pictured this Thomas in Ertl. So I obviously want to just get them out of the way. So obviously the first things first, straight away, different faces. Like, this is a plastic molded face. This is obviously just a sticker face. Though I will say, I do like the sticker face more because it's one of Thomas's noteworthy faces. Whereas, I don't know what this face of Thomas is meant to be like. To be fair, a lot of the Ertl characters didn't like have... Okay, a lot of them had good faces, but like, Thomas, I think I've seen better. I get more Percy vibes with his face, to be honest. Like, when I see Diesel D199 or Toad or Diesel or George, I picture their faces like, yep, they're perfect. Bulgy, I do. Derek, I do. Like, there's some good faces. Diesel 10s is really, really good. Like, it really catches him well. But, like, with some of, like, the first major characters, like, I don't think they did the faces that good. So, I think I would give the face-wise a win to the Thomas. Obviously, I should point out that Thomas has got the white running board and Thomas got the red one, but I don't think we need to make a comparison here. So, actually, I'll just turn the track and just try and connect. I just hope the camera doesn't fall off. I think I've got this in full view, but I think you can tell, like, the fonts are very different. Mind you, I think I've just noticed, is the side tanks here a sticker? Am I making this up? Is that actually a sticker? Or is it just... No, I think it's a sticker. Ignore me. Mind you, they do look like stickers. Am I seeing things? I do not know. So, obviously, this was pure red, and there was obviously red on the side. The running boards, despite its colour, were different fonts. Like, this is like a very thin coupling system to connect to trucks and stuff, whereas this one has a more of a fatter coupling system. So, I think it was to keep more the trucks intact and to prevent weaker braking, because obviously this wasn't the best. I think one of these on my red running board, Thomas, actually broke off. What else? I will say the tanks, the side tanks, are very different. Like, you can tell Thomas's, this one here is more bigger compared to the Thomas's, where it feels more squished down. The cab, I want to say, looks slightly different. I'm looking at the two. Like, part of it does give... They do look quite different, and even the boiler here where I'm highlighting, that looks quite different as well, I want to say. I hope I'm doing this right. I'm just giving you what I've observed. Like, the cab looks different. The inside of the cab, I want to say. obviously, I want to mention this. Like Thomas here has this nick, and it looks like how what Thomas actually has in the show, which I will give them credit for because following Thomas's, I can't think of any other Thomas that lost that nick. I don't know if Diapet or Nendroider, but I know like Take Along, Take and Play, Tommy, Trackmaster, they don't add the nick, or even Backman and Hornby. I think it's just flat and square like the Ertl Thomas that came following. So that's I want to say is different. The Cole style I will say is different. Like the Cole's completely covered up, but here on this Thomas, it not really is. Like obviously it's like there's a gap between them. Obviously, if I turn them around, it's completely the same as was on the other side. I'm actually going to turn these back because if I do it right, like okay, this Thomas I'm tapping is actually slightly taller, and you can tell the tanks here are slightly taller than the Thomas here. Like I just said that because it's more squished down or placed down, whereas this makes Thomas feel a bit more taller and like a tank engine. And there's like it's more closer to the real arches. Like the real arches here are smaller, where this one they gained bigger. Obviously the number 1 fonts are different and the red fonts are different. Let's look at the back. Like I said, the fonts there are quite different and it's got different features. So obviously there are some differences between these two Thomases, like a lot, like how Ertl first made him, and then how the only thing they changed with this one was the red running board, and then they turned it into the Thomas I think all of us had in the 90s that we had. Okay, I was born in 1999. I'm going to tell you that straight away. So, but I still had the Ertl Thomas like that. Like, it was still around like that. But, you know, obviously how they made Thomas originally is super different compared to now. Oh, I think I just left that out. Obviously, this Thomas here is more destroyed, but the stickers here, because it's taller, are quite different as well. Like the windows are more spread out and so is the whistle, but here they're more closer together, and I want to say that's because this Thomas here that I'm shaking, wobbling around, obviously got a bit shorter and squished in places. But you know what, it's not like a drastic change because it's still a good look of how Thomas looks. Obviously I think with Ertl, I look at Thomas and I now see him like a real E2, whereas if I bring him over to Take and Play Thomas or the Take Along, I would see like a representation of how Thomas looks in the series in almost in any way. But with these, I do see like E2 representations of like how it look. I mean, I looked at Diesel the other day and I was like, he's a full-on diecast class 08, and that would be the same for Ari, Bert, and Splatter and Dodge. But these two, like I said, just represent a toy very well. Of the two, though, I'm so biased towards this Thomas because I grew up with it. This was my diecast Thomas as a childhood. And when it comes to Ertl, this was the Thomas I loved. I loved using this version of Thomas. But I think after having it for a few days, I think the classic Ertl one might be better. Like, I know it's a bit scuffed up, but it's got a better representation of how Thomas has looked in the past in books and TV. He looks a bit more like an E2. He's got that little detail. He's got a white running board. And obviously it's faded a bit, but it has red on the side to show there was there was a bit more detail here. I think this is a hot take. This might be possibly a bit more of a detailed Ertl Thomas because Take Along, Take and Play, Push Along Adventures, All Engines Go don't have side rods. They didn't add detail to the running boards. It took a while for Take Along and Take and Play to represent how Thomas looked. And Thomas, obviously, I've mentioned it before, has that dip. Like, this is like, honestly, one of my favorite Thomases I own. I'm just actually been sitting down showing the comparison, so I'm gonna stand up for this. Oh, my legs. I'm gonna be honest, and I'm just gonna grab whatever for this. So, out of all the Ertls I own, out of all the take-alongs I own, out of all the minis, all the All Engines Go merch, all the wooden railway. Oh, it fell. Oh no, sorry, Whiff. Sorry, Whiff, didn't make you fall. Out of all the Trackmaster, of all the Tommy, of all the Take and Play, of all the random stuff, of other miscellaneous Thomas stuff I own, like Dire Pet, Nendroid, out of all the Hornby and Bachman, out of all the home media, out of all the books I own, this Thomas, out of... Oh, shit, sorry, Tommy Thomas. This Thomas, out of everything I own in my whole Thomas collection, is actually my favourite piece of Thomas merch I own. I can officially say that. Prior, I would say Hornby Stepney was my favourite Thomas item I own, but I can say this Thomas is my favourite piece of merch I own. When it comes to quality, I think like Take and Play or stuff like this is better, but I love the diecast Thomas lines. Okay, maybe not Push Along. I actually despise that line, but well, the CGI ones, I should say, not the All Engines Go. Like I like the Whiff I recently got, but to have like the first ever made diecast Thomas in your own possession and to like have it on display, that being so surreal. Like I still own my first ever Lightning McQueen from the Cars range. Where is he? He's actually over here. Hang on. This is my Lightning McQueen from my childhood, and honestly, it's my favourite piece of Cars merch I own because this was my first ever version. This is the first version ever made of Lightning McQueen and the diecast Cars range, and it was mine. It was my first ever one, and the fact I still have it from childhood makes it my most prized possession piece of Pixar Cars merch in my collection. That is just Justice Thomas. I didn't have it in childhood, but I didn't have it in childhood, but being a collector and owning a piece of merch of said main character in a line of makes of diecasts that you love, honestly makes me feel really special and quite happy and quite proud, to be honest. I mean, out of all the Thomases I own, this is easily my favourite Thomas I own. Not my Take and Play Thomas that I've used in my videos, not the Die Pet Thomas, not the CGI Playwell Thomas, not me Bachman, not me N-Scale Thomas. This Thomas is officially my favourite Thomas I own in my collection for just what I've said. I'm obviously going to be repeating myself because this is just... I got it for 50p. Obviously, with James, it was £1, but I got it for 50p. I'm not saying it's like cheap. I can't tell you how happy I am to actually own this. I'm not playing with it. I will have it on display, and sometimes I will take it off the shelf, and I will just have it chilling with me. Like if I'm on my Switch or watching a DVD, I will happily have that with me. It's just so brilliant to have. And that's heavy praise. You don't get Thomas merch like this today. I mean, I will say, like, the All Engines Go lines, they do a pretty solid job of representing the characters, both in Motorize and Push Along. But they haven't got that quality in them. Like, when getting this, I went onto a very big nostalgic trip. Like, they just don't make merch like they used to. And knowing this was the first diecast Thomas, obviously the diecast range has come a long way. The fact it started it all with this version of Thomas in a free pack with him, James, and Henry is honestly amazing. If you ever see this, whether new in box or just secondhand, I'd say just get it. No matter how bad or good or bad the condition is, because it'll feel special knowing you've got like the first version of Thomas from an iconic range in Thomas's history. I honestly do recommend this. It's special. Yes, it has its flaws. Yes, it's obviously, but it's its first version, like I keep saying, and to have it with me, like I keep saying, I've said it like 4 times. I'm just so happy to have it. I really am. Well, I hope you enjoyed this video. I know it's something different. Like I'm not unboxing like a new toy. It's not an all engines go on or like a really good quality Ertl taken play that I got new in box. It's second hand and it's a completely different video. Yes, and I just had to make it because this is just too special of a Thomas item to not talk about. It generally really is. I can't tell you how much times I've said I love this Thomas so much. I will happily keep this with me to the end of time. Also, I will most likely take it to Audrey Extravaganza 5, mark my words.